Sam Elliott stands as one of the most recognizable figures in American cinema, not because he has chased attention, but because he has never needed to. His presence carries a weight that feels older than Hollywood itself, an echo of the American West shaped through restraint, endurance, and quiet authority, with a voice that seems carved from weathered wood and gravel, and eyes that suggest both distance and understanding. He has become less a performer and more a symbol. Across decades of film and television, Elliott has embodied characters who rarely speak more than necessary, yet always seem to say everything that matters. Whether portraying lawmen, drifters, ranchers, or narrators of modern Americana, he brings an authenticity that feels lived rather than performed. It is not just acting. It is inhabiting a way of being that audiences instinctively trust. But behind the cinematic identity lies a life shaped by discipline, silence, personal loss, and a steady refusal to be defined by fame alone. His journey is not one of sudden stardom, but of gradual accumulation of experience, patience, and emotional depth that would later define his career. To understand Sam Elliott is not simply to trace his filmography, but to follow the quieter story beneath it, a life marked by restraint, endurance, and an unwavering sense of self that never depended on recognition to exist. Chapter 1. Roots in the American West. Sam Elliott was born in Sacramento, California, in 1944, but the emotional geography of his identity has always been tied more closely to the broader American West than to any single hometown. His upbringing reflected a blend of discipline, practicality, and understated toughness that would later become inseparable from his screen persona. His mother, involved in athletics and known for her structured approach to life, brought a sense of precision and expectation into the household. His father worked in wildlife management, a profession that required patience, observation, and a steady hand. Together, they created an environment where emotions were not openly displayed, but responsibilities were clearly defined. This kind of upbringing did not encourage performance or self-expression in the theatrical sense. Instead, it fostered self-reliance and quiet endurance. Elliott learned early that attention was not something to be sought, but something that came as a result of consistency and effort. The family eventually moved to Oregon, where the landscape itself reinforced a sense of distance and stillness. Open skies, long stretches of quiet, and a slower rhythm of life all contributed to shaping a young man who became comfortable with silence. These early years did not hint at Hollywood ambition. Instead, they built a foundation of observation and restraint qualities that would later define his presence on screen more powerfully than any formal training could. Chapter 2. Family, Discipline, and Silence. The household Sam Elliott grew up in was not emotionally expressive, but it was structured around clear expectations. His parents came from backgrounds that emphasized resilience and responsibility, values that quietly shaped the tone of his childhood. His father's work demanded focus and control, often involving long hours and difficult conditions. His mother, disciplined and composed, reinforced the idea that life required structure rather than indulgence. In such an environment, communication was often minimal, but meaning was conveyed through action rather than words. For a young Elliott, this meant learning to interpret the world through observation. Silence was not empty, it was instructive. It taught him how to read people, how to notice detail, and how to understand the weight of what was left unsaid. This upbringing also created a kind of emotional self-containment. Rather than expressing vulnerability openly, he learned to hold it internally. That internalization would later become one of the defining characteristics of his performances. Characters who carry entire histories within quiet expressions and measured speech. Even as a child, there was a sense that he was absorbing something larger than himself, a cultural memory of the American West, where endurance often mattered more than explanation. These early lessons would remain with him long after he left home, shaping both his personal identity and his artistic sensibility. Chapter 3: Education and Early Directionlessness. After completing high school in Oregon, Elliott briefly attended college, where he explored subjects such as psychology and literature. At this stage, there was no clear indication that acting would become his path. Instead, he was still searching for direction, trying to understand what kind of work or life could align with his internal sense of self. College, however, did not provide the clarity he was looking for. The structure of academia felt misaligned with his instincts, and after a short period, he left. This decision was not framed by failure, but by uncertainty, an acknowledgement that remaining in that environment did not feel authentic. During this time, he also experienced a personal shift connected to family events, including the death of his father. The impact of that loss introduced a deeper emotional undercurrent into his life, one that would take years to fully understand. Without a defined path forward, Elliott began moving toward work that required presence rather than certainty. He was not pursuing fame or ambition in a calculated way. Rather, he was following opportunities that allowed him to stay engaged and grounded. This period of uncertainty became a turning point. It was not dramatic, but gradual. He was learning in real time how to exist without clear answers and how to continue moving even when direction was unclear. That ability to remain steady in uncertainty would later become one of his most defining traits as an actor. Chapter 4: Loss and the Weight of Silence. The death of Elliott's father marked a profound emotional shift in his life. It was not just the loss of a parent, but the sudden closure of a relationship that had remained complex and at times distant. The finality of that moment left an imprint that would not easily fade. What made the experience particularly significant was not only the grief itself, but the absence of resolution. There were no extended goodbyes or final clarifications, only the abrupt reality of absence. For someone raised in a household where emotion was rarely verbalized, this lack of closure carried a deeper weight. In the aftermath, Elliott returned to his daily life, but something had changed internally. The experience reinforced a sense of impermanence and the understanding that time does not always allow for reconciliation. This awareness would later surface in his artistic choices, particularly in roles that emphasize regret, silence, and unspoken history. Rather than expressing grief outwardly, he internalized it. It became part of his emotional structure, shaping the way he approached both life and work. There was no dramatic transformation, but a quiet accumulation of perspective. This period helped solidify a recurring theme in his life, the idea that meaning often exists in what is not said. That lesson would later become central to his performances, where silence often carries more emotional weight than dialogue. Chapter 5: Early Acting and Discovery of Purpose. Elliott's entry into acting was not immediate or strategically planned. It emerged gradually through local theater work, where he began to explore performance in a more direct and personal way. One of his early experiences on stage revealed something important: a sense of belonging that he had not previously encountered elsewhere. In community productions, he discovered that presence alone could communicate meaning. He did not need to force expression. Instead, he could rely on stillness, timing, and authenticity. This approach aligned naturally with his personality and upbringing. Encouragement from local observers and small critical notices helped reinforce the idea that acting might be more than a temporary interest. However, Elliott did not interpret this as a shortcut to success. Instead, he treated it as a possible direction worth exploring further. He continued working steadily, learning through repetition rather than rapid advancement. There was no sudden breakthrough, only incremental progress. Each role added to his understanding of performance as a craft rooted in restraint rather than excess. This phase of his life marked the beginning of a shift from uncertainty toward purpose. Acting did not resolve all questions, but it provided a framework through which he could express what had previously remained internal. Chapter 6: Building a Career in the Shadows. As Elliott moved closer to professional acting, his early career unfolded in a gradual, often understated way. He took on small roles, learning the mechanics of film and television production while refining his natural screen presence. Unlike performers who rely on overt expression, Elliott developed a style built around minimalism. He understood that small gestures, pauses, and vocal tone could communicate more than extended dialogue. This made him particularly suited to roles that required emotional depth without theatrical display. His early work did not immediately place him in leading positions, but it established a foundation of reliability. Directors recognized his ability to bring authenticity to even brief appearances, and his reputation grew steadily within the industry. During this time, he also began to refine the elements that would later define his public identity: the deep voice, the calm demeanor, and the unmistakable mustache that became a visual signature. There was no sudden rise to fame, but rather a consistent accumulation of experience. Each role contributed to a growing sense of artistic identity that would eventually distinguish him from many of his contemporaries. This period demonstrated that longevity in acting is often built not on visibility alone, but on consistency, discipline, and the ability to remain authentic across changing roles and eras. Chapter 7: Iconic Roles and Cinematic Presence. Elliott's career eventually expanded into widely recognized roles that cemented his status in American cinema. Films such as Tombstone, The Big Lebowski, and A Star is Born showcased different dimensions of his range, from stoic lawman to subtle comedic presence to emotionally grounded supporting characters. In each role, he brought a consistency of tone that made his performances immediately identifiable. He rarely needed to dominate a scene; instead, he anchored it. His presence often provided balance, allowing other performances to orbit around his grounded delivery. What distinguished him was not transformation but continuity. Regardless of genre, he remained recognizably himself, adapting without losing his core identity. This created a sense of trust between actor and audience. Over time, Elliott became associated with a particular cinematic archetype: the quiet, morally grounded figure who carries emotional history without needing to articulate it fully. This archetype resonated strongly with audiences, particularly in stories centered around Americana and personal struggle. His work demonstrated that impact in film does not always come from intensity, but from restraint. In many ways, his performances reflect the idea that what is held back can be just as powerful as what is revealed. Chapter 8: Personal Life and Private Stability. Outside of his professional career, Elliott's personal life has been marked by long-term stability and privacy. His marriage to actress Katharine Ross, beginning in 1984, has endured through decades of change in both their careers and the entertainment industry. Their relationship has remained largely out of the public spotlight, reflecting a shared preference for privacy over visibility. Rather than constructing a public narrative, they have maintained a life centered on continuity and mutual support. Their daughter, Cleo Rose Elliott, has also pursued creative work, continuing a family connection to artistic expression while maintaining her own independent path. Unlike many public figures, Elliott has not built an identity around luxury or display. There is little emphasis on material excess or publicized lifestyle choices. Instead, his life reflects a quieter form of consistency. This stability has contributed to his enduring public image as someone grounded and unaffected by the more performative aspects of fame. It reinforces the sense that his identity is rooted more in craft and personal values than in celebrity culture. Chapter 9: Legacy, Continuity, and Enduring Image. As Elliott continues working into later stages of his career, his presence remains active rather than retrospective. Projects such as Landman demonstrate that he is still engaged in storytelling, not as a figure of nostalgia, but as a continuing participant in contemporary film and television. His legacy is not defined by reinvention, but by persistence. He represents a type of actor whose identity does not require constant transformation to remain relevant. Instead, his consistency has become his defining strength. There is a sense that his career has never relied on spectacle. Even at its most visible moments, it has remained grounded in simplicity and emotional truth. This approach has allowed him to remain recognizable across generations. In an industry often driven by rapid change, Elliott stands as an example of sustained presence. His work suggests that longevity in acting can come from staying aligned with one's core identity rather than constantly reshaping it. Outro: the quiet meaning of endurance. Sam Elliott's story is not one of dramatic reinvention or constant reinvention, but of steady continuity. Across decades, he has maintained a presence defined not by volume, but by depth. His work suggests that strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply remains. What makes his career enduring is not only the roles he has played, but the way he has approached them, with restraint, authenticity, and an understanding that presence itself can be enough. He represents a form of artistry that values silence as much as speech. In a cultural landscape often focused on speed and visibility, Elliott's life offers a different perspective. That meaning can be built slowly, and that consistency can be more powerful than attention. Ultimately, his legacy is not just cinematic. It is a reminder that identity can be carried quietly, without performance, and still be deeply felt.